Can you hear me today? No? Hold on here. All right. How about now? We are still figuring this out just a little bit, huh? We're going to get there though.
I can hear you now.
There we go. Now I hear you. Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
How are you today?
I am doing all right.
Wonderful.
Doing all right.
Awesome. Well, we are day 2 of our little kind of devotional series. Just again, opportunity for people to kind of be encouraged. And today's nice weather. It was supposed to be rainy, but tomorrow is supposed to be rainy now. So who knows? But well, I'll go ahead here in just a second and play the little video that we've got to share. And then since you and I are here again, we can talk about it, share any thoughts that you have, and then we'll be gone. But then we'll share this online once again so that the rest of our Family Worship Center family and friends, if they want to jump on and participate later, they're not able to be here right now. We can certainly do that. So hi everybody that's watching later. I hope you're doing well. We love you. I'll be putting out more details about Easter later this evening. We're finalizing a few things right now, but we'll be putting out those details later. And so look for that. But we're going to continue with our little devotion, just short devotion series, kind of looking at the word and the importance of the word in our lives. And so I think I am sharing that. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right, beautiful. That's what we want. And
the Bible's an important book, but it's really long. Yeah, it's a collection of many books written over a long period of time, but altogether they tell one unified story. So, what's the story of the Bible? Well, it begins by introducing us to a beautiful mind, the author of all reality, a being called God. And he has the power to take the dark chaos of the uncreated world and bring about order and beauty and a garden full of life. And to crown this accomplishment, God appoints these creatures called humanity, or in Hebrew, Adam. And they're made as God's image. Which means that they're commissioned to rule this beautiful world on God's behalf by harnessing all of its potential and creating even more beauty and order. This is a story about humans using their power to do meaningful, life-giving work. But the question is, how? Yeah, humanity now faces a choice that's represented by a fruit tree. So humans could partner with God and find freedom by trusting in his knowledge of good and evil. Or they could seize power and define good and evil on their own, which, God warns, will kill them. And they hear the voice of a dark, mysterious creature that tells them the choice is simple. Take the fruit. It'll give you power and freedom to rule the world on your own terms. And so they seize this knowledge, and as a result, they become suspicious and self-protective. It leads to fractured relationships, violent power grabs, and ultimately, a whole civilization, Babylon, that has redefined evil as good. And so, God scatters this corrupted human project. And here the story of the Bible takes an important turn. We zoom into the story of a man and a woman who come out of Babylon, Abraham and Sarah. Yeah, God promises that from them will come a new people, a nation that has another chance to make the right choice. And if they succeed, it will open up this new way forward for the rest of humanity. And this is why the rest of the Bible story is about this family. And it does not go well. Despite God's personal guidance, Abraham's family gives in to that same temptation to redefine good and evil on their own terms, apart from God. Even when their best people were in charge, rulers who loved God's guidance and had divine wisdom, even they gave in. And so Israel was warned by their own prophets that these choices would lead them back to Babylon, this time as conquered captives living in exile, and that's exactly what happened. So even with God's personal guidance, Israel fails. Who can succeed? Well, the prophet said that the story wasn't over. God's going to send a new leader to Israel to cover for their failures and to transform the people's hearts and minds so that they can make the right choice.
And so the part of the Bible called the Old Testament ends, and these promises are left hanging.
And then the biblical story continues into the New Testament. We're introduced to a man who comes from the line of Israel's kings, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said that he was bringing all these promises to their completion.
He confronted that dark, mysterious evil that all humanity is given into and resisted its power.
And then he announced that God had arrived to rule the world through himself. Jesus taught about God's that real power is serving others. According to Jesus, it's people who love the poor and even love their enemies. These are the kinds of people who actually rule the world.
And that's confusing, but also really beautiful.
And so is the claim that the story goes on to make about Jesus, that he is God become human, to be for Israel and for all humanity what we could never be for ourselves. He came to take the consequences of our evil into himself, and his sacrificial love proved more powerful than evil, than even death itself.
So now humanity's presented with a new choice.
Represented by a new tree.
Stick with the old way of being human, or venture into this new way.
And in the story, those who choose the way of Jesus find themselves energized by God's own power. People who know that they are loved and forgiven by God can become people who love and forgive others in return.
The Jesus movement quickly spread throughout the world, forming these new communities of people who follow the way of Jesus.
But they faced problems. There was persecution from the outside by people in power, and inside there was confusion, even compromise.
Yeah, because following Jesus is really hard.
And so the movement's leaders, called apostles, they wrote letters to comfort and to challenge these communities to stay faithful to the difficult way of Jesus.
And they're called to hope for the day when Jesus will come and change everything.
And so the Bible ends by pointing to the future day, when all wrongs are made right, when evil is eradicated, heaven and earth are united, and humanity can rule the world together in the love and power of God.
Okay, so that's the story of the Bible, and it brings all of these books together.
But what's interesting is that each book contains a different kind of literature that contributes to the story in a unique way. And that's what the next video will begin to explore.
So there it all is in a nutshell.
Yep.
What I like the comparison of the tree from the garden, and then they said a new tree, and of course, as we're getting ready to go into Easter weekend, what an interesting thought and comparison that is. But they also said that following Jesus is hard.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm a pastor, but I still find that hard sometimes. What about you?
Yeah, it can be hard, especially when we live in a society where serving Jesus isn't really common anymore. It's more about self-interest and social justice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that, like in your opinion, that you do to kind of keep yourself grounded in the decisions that you want to make and go forward with doing what you feel like God wants you to do, instead of slipping into that other side where you're doing what other people are doing or doing what you feel like instead?
Well, here recently, it's been all about getting into the Word and grounding yourself into the Word.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more that you know it, you know the stories, and you see the history of what God's will is for his people, then you're able to go back and use that as a point of reference. So is it God's plan and purpose for, jealousy or for envy? No, it's not. He has something better for you because he created you. So that's the biggest part. And also being reminded constantly of all the things that we have and the blessings that we have, even when it's so easy to feel like, oh, we're losing everything in this time. We're losing our freedom. We're losing this. We're losing that. And finding peace in the, oh, now I can sit down for an hour and dive into the Word and pray without having to rush and worry about traffic.
Mm-hmm.
It brings its own giftings, even in the difficult times.
Mhm. It really is a time where we're able to kind of refocus. I mean, we think about all the technology and all that that's supposed to connect us like this, which is an awesome thing to have, but at the same time, all the technology kind of has made us busier and busier in all that
Yeah.
connection. And now so many people have to kind of just take time, and you're at home and you can only talk on the phone for so long, and all those things. And it really gives the opportunity to kind of gain a new perspective, or refocus that
Mhm.
perspective, you think?
Yeah. Well, the average person reaches for their cell phone every like 92 seconds. So being where we're not able to go and distract ourselves with other things, now like your phone is your lifeline.
Mhm.
And I want so badly to disconnect from the phone, but I need the phone because now the phone is my lifeline to work and working from
Mhm.
home, my connection.
Mm.
And whereas before I could have my phone and disconnect, now that's a part of the connection as well.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm. But at the same time, in that connection, it gives us the opportunity, as you said, to connect more to God and really kind of have more quiet time if
yeah.
you choose to, if you elect to. And as we were seeing in this video, how it kind of shows us how the story is all weaved together. Everything
Mhm.
is connected in the Bible. And a lot of times people don't understand that, especially if you came into Christianity a little bit older or a little bit later. A lot of people, they don't understand who Abraham is. They don't understand who David is, and how everything in the Old Testament connects to everything in the New Testament. And so, my encouragement, part of the reason for doing this series this way, is to help people hopefully not only slow down, but take some time to go back and see maybe some things that you missed. Because here's what I find is when you discover something about the word that you didn't know, that's cool, but it also usually enhances things that you already knew, and it brings greater clarity to it.
Yeah. We've been doing a Bible plan, and I've been noticing about how redundant God's law is. And like we're in Deuteronomy, so there's a lot of law. And I'm like, we just heard this last chapter. Why are we hearing this all over again? Like, can we
Mhm.
get back to the story where I'm like right on the brink of the promised land? Like, how many times do I need to hear, do not eat of the blood? Um, I think that's something that turns a lot of people off is all the laws
Mhm.
of the Old Testament and the culture behind it, and it really brings you down.
Mhm.
Um, but Christ came to free us of
Yeah,
the burden of the law.
absolutely.
So, and once you realize how much of a burden that was, and how free you are now,
Mhm.
man, that's such a reason to rejoice.
It is. Well, and the other thing is, part of the reason that it's so repetitive in the sense, you guys don't have any pets, right?
Yes.
But like I have a dog. I've had animals growing up my entire life. You always have to remind them of the same thing. Like even today, I told my 12-year-old dog, no, don't get on the table. I mean, she knows not to get on a table. She's probably
Mhm.
heard that 100 times this year, but yet she tries it again. And that's the way we are, where if we're not connected to God like we're supposed to be, and if we're not practicing his presence like we're supposed to be, we tend to drift off and kind of get funny in our thinking and all that. And so he has to constantly remind us. And of course, now it's different because we have the Holy Spirit who's in us, where before Jesus we didn't have that. But I think it's very good that you point that out, that the Old Testament. I had some people just right before all of this shut down, we were doing a little Bible study for some folks who may watch this video. But one of the good things they said is, I got like 10 pages in and I stopped because I was bored. And that's
Yeah.
because it's, you have to get through all the setup to get to how it actually applies. But the word really does have such a
Mhm.
magnificent story to it, the way God connects creation to, to the Tower of Babel, to Abraham, to, all of that stuff. But there's everything else that helps us actually live the way we're supposed to, that we've got to get through as well. But it's all about being consistent.
Mhm.
And I think that right now is a great time for people to do that, because, as you know, it takes time to build a habit to do things
Yeah.
the right way. And so as we're stuck at home, as we have more time, as we're a little slower, now's the time to, you don't have to pray for hours and hours. You don't have to read the Bible for hours and hours, but doing it consistently, maybe a couple of times a day right now, so that when things go back to normal, if you want to use that word, hopefully we've built this habit of, okay, I'm going to disconnect from the email, disconnect from the desk work and all that, and spend a few moments, in the word, letting God speak to me.
Yes. I will say, Nikki Grumble does an excellent job in the Bible in 1 year program on the Holy Bible app, and where he ties, there's 3 sections. There's Proverbs and Psalms, then there's the New Testament, and then there's the Old Testament.
Mhm.
And he and his wife, Pippa, kind of work together and explain how Psalms and Proverbs is still relevant today, how the laws are still relevant today, and how the Holy Spirit is still relevant today. And
Mhm.
it's a wonderful app. If anyone's looking for like a Bible in 1 year, I definitely recommend it.
Excellent.
And another beautiful thing is the devotional part of it is recorded, so you can listen to it
Oh,
instead
nice.
of reading. And then the Bible app with the Bible passages, it's read out. So when you come to those really odd names that you don't know how to pronounce, the reader just pronounces it for you. So
Nice.
that's
That is
a benefit now with technology and having these tools, that we have it easier than they did 20, 30, 40 years ago in reading the Bible.
absolutely, yeah. And again, I'm a pastor, but I'll be the first one to admit there have been times when I'm reading Kings or Chronicles or Leviticus, and I find myself, looking around like, what just happened? And I've just completely zoned out, because some of it,
Yeah.
you've got all the names. But even that, if you're into really interesting studies, the meanings of all those names, that's a really interesting study that somebody can do sometime. But hey, when we post this on the Facebook page, if you have a link for that app that you can copy and paste into the comments, do that, so that other people might be able to grab a hold of that and download it, or look into it. That'd be great.
All right. Given my current Facebook technology issues, I will send you the link once I find it.
That works too. That works
So
too. Awesome.
I'm
Well, thanks so much
I'm
for
starting to
jumping.
think it's God's hand on my whole Facebook issues, and maybe it's time to step aside from all that.
Every now and then it's good to disconnect from it, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Well, hey, thanks for jumping on. We'll definitely be doing this again. And anybody else who's joining us later on watching this, thank you so much. Hopefully, again, just learn a little bit and just are encouraged to keep going, keep opening the Bible, keep pressing in, keep reading, keep expecting that God is going to speak to you. That's part of it too, is, okay, I'm not just opening the Bible because I need to, but every time I open the word, whether it's in a devotion, an app, just opening it up and saying, okay, I'm going to pick a passage, I'm opening it with the attitude and expectation God has something He wants to speak to me. And that's an important part of it, don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much. Everybody have a great day, and we'll check in later. And if you all need anything, just reach out. Bye.
Bye.